The one decision that haunts me, that truly keeps me awake at night, was choosing night shifts and leaving Kylie with Robert. It's a choice I can't undo, and it's consuming me. I constantly relive every moment, searching for when I should have seen the signs, when I should have heeded my 4-year-old daughter's nightly pleas for me to stay. Financial necessity was my constant justification. Night nursing paid significantly more, and Robert was out of work from his accounting job. It was meant to be temporary, just until he found new employment. He claimed to be applying, but no offers materialized. 6 months bled into a year. Initially, Kylie seemed fine, she'd always been a daddy's girl. But then, a subtle shift occurred. I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but perhaps 3 months into my night shifts, as I prepared to leave around 10 p.m., Kylie's crying began. These weren't typical toddler tears, but raw, gut-wrenching sobs that caused a physical ache in my chest. She'd clutch my legs, screaming, "Mommy, don't go. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me with Daddy." Robert's response was always the same: "She's just being dramatic. She's fine once you're gone. She's manipulating you, she just wants attention." And like a fool, I believed him. I rationalized it as separation anxiety, a common phase according to parenting blogs. I'd kneel, promising Kylie I'd be back in the morning, assuring her Daddy would care for her, that she was safe. She never believed me. Her small fingers dug into my arms, leaving marks, her face crimson from screaming. The last image before I left was Robert almost prying her off me, her tiny body thrashing as the door closed. Every single night, I began to dread work. I'd sit in my car, weeping for 10 minutes before heading to the hospital. My colleagues noticed my exhaustion. Tiffany, another nurse on my floor, frequently asked if everything was all right at home, and I'd dismiss it, saying, "Yeah, my kid's just going through a phase." Then Kylie regressed, experiencing accidents despite being toilet trained for over a year. She'd awakened screaming from inexplicable nightmares and began to hide in cramped spaces, under her bed, in her closet, behind the couch. I'd discover her curled up in these tight spots, just staring, not playing, simply hiding. I confronted Robert once, asking if anything occurred at night that might be frightening her. He became intensely defensive, accusing me of branding him a bad father, claiming I was the one abandoning them every night. He spun the narrative so quickly, my head reeled, and I capitulated, as I always did with Robert. Kylie began developing bruises, nothing severe, just small marks on her arms or legs. Robert always had an explanation: she fell off the swing, bumped the coffee table, or was roughhousing with the neighbor's child. As a nurse, I should have known better, should have recognized the pattern. But I was perpetually exhausted, juggling 12-hour shifts, trying to be a mother by day, and striving to hold our family together. I simply accepted his explanations because the alternative was too dreadful to contemplate. Then, 3 weeks ago, Kylie started refusing to be alone with Robert altogether, not just at night. If I went to the bathroom, she'd follow. If I tried to run to the store, she'd have a complete meltdown. She began sleeping in my bed during the day while I attempted to rest before work. One afternoon, as Kylie napped beside me, Robert entered, stating he needed to discuss her behavior. He claimed she was becoming overly reliant on me, that I was fostering it by allowing her to sleep with me, and that he intended to be firmer with her. Something in his tone sent shivers down my spine. That night was the absolute worst. Kylie was crying so hysterically she actually threw up when I attempted to leave. She kept screaming, "Don't leave me, Mommy. Please don't leave me. He hurts me when you're gone. He hurts me." Robert forcefully took her, ordering her to stop lying. His expression was unsettling. He seemed to be smiling for my benefit, but his eyes held a completely different, terrifying glint. He just told me to go, that he'd manage her, insisting she was clearly overtired and fabricating things for attention. I almost stayed, almost called in sick, but we desperately needed the money, and I was already on thin ice for previous absences. So I left. I abandoned my little girl, screaming that her father was hurting her. At work, I couldn't focus, making small errors, dropping items, forgetting basic procedures. Around 3 a.m., Tiffany pulled me aside, urging me to take a break. I collapsed in the staff room, pouring out everything to her. She listened intently, then asked one question that altered my entire perspective: "Have you checked your nanny cam?" We had a baby monitor system Robert installed when Kylie was an infant, connected to our Wi-Fi and storing footage in the cloud. I hadn't checked it in ages, since Kylie was no longer a baby. But Tiffany's question hit me with the force of a physical blow. At 3:30 a.m., in the hospital break room, my hands shaking uncontrollably, I logged into the app. The camera was still positioned in Kylie's room, aimed at her bed. The night's footage initially showed an empty room, then Robert bringing her in. She was still crying, but quieter now, as if utterly drained. He put her in bed and stood there, staring down at her for an unnervingly long time. Then he sat on the edge of her bed and began to speak. I couldn't hear him, the app sound was muted, and I couldn't find my earbuds. But I could see Kylie's face, her shrinking away, pressing herself against the wall, Robert's hand extending toward her. My heart hammered, threatening to give out. I fumbled to turn on the sound, but my hands trembled too violently. I watched as Robert leaned closer to Kylie, his back to the camera. She was crying again, shaking her head no repeatedly. As I watched my husband pull back the covers, the app crashed. My phone completely froze. I restarted it, but when I tried to log back in, it claimed my password was incorrect. I tried again and again, but nothing worked. I called our home phone, but no one answered. Tiffany found me hyperventilating in the break room. She helped me regain my composure. I called my next-door neighbor, an elderly woman who had our spare key for emergencies, and asked her to check on Kylie. 10 minutes later, she called back, reporting everything was fine. Robert had answered the door, stating Kylie was sleeping soundly and he didn't want to disturb her, adding that I was likely just paranoid from exhaustion. I couldn't wait until morning. I left my shift early, driving home frantically. It was almost 5 a.m. when I arrived. The house was dark and silent. Robert was asleep in our bed. I went straight to Kylie's room, her bed was empty. I frantically searched the house, checking all her usual hiding spots. Finally, I found her in the guest bathroom tub, curled up with her favorite stuffed animal, fast asleep. When I picked her up, she started screaming. It took several minutes to calm her down. Enough for her to recognize me, not Robert. Once she did, she simply collapsed against me, sobbing, clinging, whispering "Mommy," repeatedly. I carried her to my car, buckled her in, and drove to Tiffany's place. She'd given me her address before I left the hospital. Kylie fell back asleep in the car. I carried her inside, and Tiffany settled us into her spare room. I'm at a loss. Robert has been calling nonstop, leaving voicemails, claiming to be worried sick, demanding our location, threatening to call the police if we don't return home, accusing me of losing my mind, of having a breakdown, of needing help. Tiffany advises taking Kylie to the hospital for examination, but I'm paralyzed by fear. What if they find nothing? What if Robert convinces them I'm the unstable one? What if they return her to him? But what if they do find something? How can I live with the fact that I left my daughter with a monster, night after night, while she pleaded for me to stay? Right now, Kylie is napping in Tiffany's guest room, having clung to my side all day. She flinches at loud noises and keeps asking if Daddy knows where we are. I need to decide my next step. The police? The hospital? My parents live 3 states away. We could go there, but Robert would anticipate that. The most agonizing part is the persistent whisper in my mind, questioning if I'm overreacting, if Kylie truly was just having nightmares, if Robert is right, and I'm succumbing to exhaustion and stress. But then I recall her face on that nanny cam, the sheer terror. No child acts like that for no reason. I need to retrieve that footage, somehow. I need proof. I need to know exactly what he was doing to her all those nights I left her, despite her screams for me to stay. The decision to work nights, leaving Kylie with Robert, that's the one I can't undo. That's what's keeping me awake now, watching my daughter sleep, flinching at every outside sound, wondering if he'll find us. What do I do now? First, a huge thank you to everyone who commented on my initial post. I never anticipated such an outpouring. I'm currently in Tiffany's bathroom, typing this while Kylie finally sleeps. 48 hours have passed since we left home, and the situation has only escalated. The morning after our stay at Tiffany's, I decided to take Kylie to a children's hospital, choosing one across town, not my own workplace, knowing Robert would search there first. Tiffany drove us. The entire ride, I was terrified, constantly checking the rearview mirror for any sign of pursuit. Kylie clutched my hand, repeatedly asking if Daddy was coming to get her, her tone chillingly devoid of childlike yearning. At the hospital, I expressed concerns about potential abuse, initially speaking in veiled terms because Kylie was present. The triage nurse immediately understood, quickly ushering us into a private area. They clearly had a specific protocol for such cases. A child life specialist took Kylie to play, allowing me to speak with Dr. Kelly. She was incredibly kind, completely non-judgmental, as I broke down, struggling to explain everything: the night shifts, Kylie's screams, her hiding, the partial nanny cam footage I'd seen before it vanished. Dr. Kelly asked if Kylie had revealed anything specific about Robert's actions. I said no, only that he hurt her and gave her bad dreams. Dr. Kelly explained this was common. Children often lack the vocabulary to articulate what they're experiencing. The hospital assembled a specialized team, a social worker named Donald, who had a gentle voice and weary, knowing eyes, and a detective. They interviewed me separately while a pediatrician examined Kylie. I kept agonizing, questioning if I was doing the right thing, if I was losing my mind, if I was pointlessly destroying our lives. When the pediatrician returned, my heart plummeted. She stated there was no obvious physical trauma or signs of sexual abuse, but Kylie had concerning bruises on her upper arms and back, consistent with being roughly grabbed. There was also a small burn on her inner thigh that Kylie wouldn't explain. It wasn't the definitive proof I'd hoped for, not enough to conclusively state Robert had harmed her, but it was something. The doctor emphasized the bruising pattern. Was suspicious, especially given Kylie's behavior. That's when everything spiraled. Robert appeared at the hospital. I don't know how he found us, perhaps he called around to all the hospitals, or tracked my phone. But suddenly, he was there in the waiting area, speaking to the front desk staff, appearing utterly distraught and worried, the picture of a concerned father. I was in a consultation room with Donald and the detective when a nurse entered, informing us Kylie's father had arrived, demanding to see his daughter. A chill ran through my entire body. Donald left to speak with him while the detective remained with me. I could hear Robert's voice escalating down the hall, loudly asserting I had taken Kylie without permission, that I'd been acting erratically for weeks, and that he was concerned for our safety. The detective observed me closely, inquiring about the veracity of Robert's claims, asking if I had permission to take Kylie, and if I'd been experiencing mental health issues. I tried to explain, but even to my own ears, my words sounded incoherent. Yes, I had taken Kylie without informing Robert. Yes, I'd been stressed and fatigued from work. Yes, I'd left my shift early without authorization. Yes, Robert had always been a good father before this. Yes, Kylie had been exhibiting behavioral problems. And yes, I had no concrete proof beyond the partial nanny cam footage I'd seen, which was now inaccessible. Donald returned, his face grim. He informed me Robert had filed a police report for kidnapping that morning upon discovering us gone. Robert had also produced medical records indicating I'd been prescribed sleep aids for insomnia last year, and claimed I'd been experiencing paranoid thoughts and mood swings for months. My mouth gaped, speechless. How did he have my medical records? I had been prescribed Ambien last year, but only took it a few times as it made me groggy, and I'd never mentioned paranoia to my doctor. Robert must have, somehow, accessed my patient portal or fabricated it. I couldn't think straight. Donald stated they needed to interview Kylie alone, explaining it was standard procedure. I nodded, feeling like a zombie. They wouldn't allow Robert to see her yet either. While Kylie was being interviewed, Robert was permitted to speak with me, with Donald and the detective present. He entered, appearing perfectly normal, concerned, slightly saddened, but composed. I barely recognized him. This wasn't the Robert I'd seen standing over Kylie's bed in that nanny cam footage. He sat across from me, his eyes conveying a subtle restraint, as if holding back tears. He expressed immense relief that we were safe, claimed he'd been worried sick, and couldn't comprehend why I'd taken Kylie in the middle of the night without telling him, asking what was happening with me. I simply stared, unable to form words. The detective questioned him about Kylie's arm bruises and thigh burn. Robert didn't even flinch. He stated Kylie had fallen off playground equipment at the park last week, showing them pictures on his phone of Kylie there from the previous Saturday. He said the small burn likely occurred when Kylie was helping him cook breakfast, accidentally touching the pan, even producing a picture of them making pancakes together from Sunday morning. His voice thickened with emotion as he recounted their daddy-daughter breakfast tradition. He had a plausible, documented answer for everything, complete with casual photos a normal father might take, making me sound like the unstable one. Then, Robert produced his phone, showing them his own copy of our nanny cam footage from the previous night, footage I could no longer access. My heart almost stopped. The video showed precisely what I had begun to see, Robert entering Kylie's room, sitting on her bed. But then it continued, showing him tucking her in, reading her a story. Kylie was still crying slightly, but gradually calmed down. It showed Robert kissing her forehead and leaving the room. It was completely normal, utterly innocent. I felt like I was losing my mind. That wasn't what I saw. That wasn't what was happening. He must have edited it, or replaced it, or something. But how could I prove it? How could I explain that his video wasn't what I'd initially witnessed? Robert told them I'd been under immense stress, that he'd been pleading with me to reduce my hours, and that he was concerned I was experiencing a breakdown. He even began to cry, claiming he simply wanted to help me recover for our family's sake. Donald and the detective exchanged an unreadable glance. Then Kylie returned with a female officer. She saw Robert and froze, completely rigid in the doorway. Then she bolted to me, clambered into my lap, burying her face in my shoulder, refusing to look at him. That had to mean something, right? The way she reacted to seeing him. The detective noticed it too, I could tell. But Robert merely looked sad and stated, "See, this is what I'm talking about. She's feeding off your anxiety. You've made her afraid of me." They requested to speak with Kylie alone again. I didn't want to let her go, but they insisted. Robert and I waited in separate rooms. My hands shaking too much to type clearly, I texted Tiffany what was happening. She offered to return to the hospital, but I told her to stay away. I didn't want Robert to target her too. After what felt like an eternity, Donald returned. He stated Kylie wasn't disclosing any abuse. She was confused and scared. She mentioned having bad dreams but couldn't, or wouldn't, elaborate. She missed her daddy but was also afraid. His exact words were, "We don't have enough to substantiate abuse allegations at this time." Those words struck me like physical blows. He said they couldn't prevent Robert from having contact with Kylie based on the current evidence. I must have made a sound, because Donald quickly added they were still investigating, that they'd conduct home visits, and wanted us to attend family counseling, assuring me they were taking it seriously. But then he said something that sent a chill through me. Given the circumstances, they were concerned about my mental state and decision-making. He warned that if I continued to make unfounded accusations or attempted to prevent Robert from seeing Kylie, I could lose custody myself. Robert was permitted a brief, supervised visit with Kylie. He didn't pressure her when she wouldn't hug him, merely spoke softly, telling her he missed her, asking if she was ready to come home. She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes, and something inside me shattered. Somehow, we reached a bizarre compromise. Kylie and I could stay elsewhere temporarily while the investigation proceeded, but I had to disclose our location. Robert would have supervised visits starting tomorrow, and we'd begin family counseling next week. I had to return to work or take official leave, and agree not to leave the state. The alternative was an emergency custody hearing, where Robert would likely gain temporary custody, given my perceived erratic behavior and lack of concrete evidence. So now we're back at Tiffany's. I had to tell Robert our location, he knows her address. He's coming tomorrow at 2 p.m. for his first supervised visit, and Donald will be here to monitor, but I'm still terrified. Kylie is finally asleep after crying herself into utter exhaustion. She made me check under the bed, in the closet, behind the shower curtain, and made me promise I wouldn't leave, her small fingers tightly wrapped around mine as she drifted off. I've been scrutinizing my phone, attempting to unravel how Robert accessed my medical records or manipulated the nanny cam footage. I discovered he installed a family locator app on my phone months ago, ostensibly for emergencies. That's likely how he found us at the hospital. I deleted it immediately. I also found bizarre text conversations with my mom and friends, implying months of complaints about stress and paranoid thoughts. Yet, I never sent those messages, never had those conversations. Still, they appear in my message history, some dating back almost a year, supposedly sent at times I know I was working or sleeping. I'm terrified to sleep, afraid Robert will somehow get in, afraid they'll take Kylie away, afraid no one will believe me because I can barely believe myself anymore. The nanny cam footage he presented looked so normal. What if I did imagine it? What if I am experiencing some kind of breakdown? But then Kylie whimpers in her sleep, and I know what I saw begin to unfold on that camera. I know my daughter, I know she's terrified of her father for a reason. Tiffany insists I need a lawyer, stating the situation is beyond our personal handling. She has a friend who's a family attorney, whom she'll call tomorrow. But lawyers are expensive, and Robert controls our joint bank accounts. I have a small personal savings account, but not much. I already checked my work email, there's a warning for leaving my shift early. My supervisor wants to meet tomorrow to discuss recent performance issues I didn't even know existed until now. There are complaint forms dating back weeks. About medication errors I never made, patient interactions that never happened. I feel like I'm drowning, as if everything I believe to be stable is actually quicksand. The more I struggle, the deeper I sink. The worst part is that faint voice still whispering, maybe he's right. Maybe you are losing it. Maybe you did see something that wasn't there. But then I look at Kylie's bruises, at the small, circular burn on her inner thigh that bears no resemblance to an accidental touch to a pan, at the way she flinches when doors close too loudly, at how she whispers, "Please don't make me go with Daddy." I don't know what to do, don't know who to trust. Robert has so thoroughly upended my reality that I'm questioning my own sanity. The very systems meant to protect us are now scrutinizing me as much as him. I'll attempt to get some sleep while Kylie rests, dreading tomorrow, dreading the supervised visit, dreading what comes next. If anyone has endured something similar, please tell me what to do. How do I fight someone who has already convinced everyone I'm delusional? How do I protect my child when no one believes there's anything to protect them from? And if anyone knows how to recover deleted nanny cam footage or prove messages were sent from my phone by someone else, please tell me. That might be our only hope. It's been 4 days since my last update. I'm typing this from a hospital chair, watching Kylie sleep, hooked up to monitors. Everything has spiraled so far out of control I can barely form a coherent thought. The supervised visit with Robert took place. Donald, the social worker, arrived at Tiffany's apartment 30 minutes early to explain the procedure. He stated he would be present the entire time, intervening if necessary, but primarily wanted to observe the natural interaction between Robert and Kylie, believing it would establish a baseline for their relationship. Kylie had been suffering panic attacks all morning, not typical tantrums, but full-blown hyperventilating, struggling to breathe. I had to rock her like a baby to soothe her. She kept repeating she didn't want to see Daddy, didn't want the bad dreams. When Donald arrived, she hid under Tiffany's bed and refused to emerge. It took 20 minutes of gentle coaxing to get her into the living room. Donald noticed, making notes on his clipboard. That had to count for something, right? A child this terrified isn't fabricating fear. Robert arrived precisely at 2 p.m., presenting as father of the year, clean-shaven, carrying Kylie's favorite stuffed animal she'd left at home, a gentle smile that still made my skin crawl because I knew it was a facade. Donald formally introduced himself and outlined the rules: a 2-hour visit, he would remain present, no physical discipline, and respect Kylie's boundaries. Kylie was seated next to me on the couch, pressing herself against my side so tightly it was painful. When Robert entered, she became completely still, no crying, no speaking, just frozen, like a rabbit sighting a fox. The first hour was agonizing. Robert sat on the floor, attempting to engage Kylie. Kylie refused to leave my side, and I fought to suppress the urge to grab her and flee. Donald observed, diligently taking notes. Robert suggested Kylie show him her temporary bedroom, perhaps to read a story. Kylie shook her head violently. Donald intervened, suggesting they all remain in the living room, noting that transitions were challenging for children in stressful situations. Then Robert did something that chilled me to the bone. He looked directly at Kylie and said, "Remember our special game? The one where you get to be the princess in the tower? I have a new story about the princess I could tell you." Kylie began, trembling against me, her tiny body vibrating with sheer terror. She whispered, "No games. No princess games." I asked Robert what princess game he was referring to. He smiled, claiming it was just a bedtime story they shared when I was at work, about a princess locked in a tower who had to be very quiet, or the dragon would hear her. Donald asked Kylie if she liked the princess stories. She shook her head, still trembling. Donald made another note. Halfway through the visit, I desperately needed to use the restroom. I didn't want to leave Kylie, but I couldn't hold it any longer. I told Donald I'd be right back. Kylie started panicking, clinging to me. Robert, in a soothing voice, said it was okay, Daddy was there, nothing bad would happen. I went as quickly as humanly possible, gone for no more than 2 minutes. When I returned, Kylie was still on the couch, but something had fundamentally shifted. She was sitting perfectly still, back straight, hands folded in her lap, staring at the floor, completely silent. Robert was across the room, casually conversing with Donald. I rushed to Kylie, asking if she was okay. She didn't respond, didn't even look at me, just kept staring at the floor with that vacant expression. I touched her shoulder, and she flinched. So violently she nearly fell off the couch. Donald noticed immediately, came over to check on her, asking Kylie what happened. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't make eye contact. Robert looked appropriately concerned, suggesting she might be overtired, and that they end the visit early. As soon as Robert left, Kylie collapsed into my arms, sobbing, but she still wouldn't articulate what had occurred during those 2 minutes I was gone. Donald stayed for another hour, trying to coax her to talk, but she refused, just kept repeating, "No princess games," over and over. That night, Kylie wouldn't sleep, wouldn't even lie down. She sat in the corner of Tiffany's guest room, her back to the wall, watching the door until she literally passed out from exhaustion around 4 a.m. When I tried to move her to the bed, she woke up screaming. The next morning, Tiffany helped me find a lawyer who agreed to meet us that afternoon. Kylie was still virtually catatonic, barely speaking, flinching at every sound. I was terrified to leave her, but Tiffany offered to stay with her while I met with the lawyer, promising she wouldn't leave Kylie alone for even a second. The lawyer, Ricardo, an older man with kind eyes behind thick glasses, listened to my entire story without interruption. When I finished, he sat silently for a moment, then stated, "You're being systematically gaslit." He explained that Robert's actions, creating a false medical history, manipulating digital evidence, establishing a narrative of my mental instability, were textbook preparation for a custody battle. He said abusers often orchestrate these schemes months or even years in advance. When I asked what we could do, he replied, "Without hard evidence, it would be my word against Robert's." And Robert had already generated a paper trail, making my words seem unreliable. Ricardo stressed, we needed to focus on Kylie, getting her to feel safe enough to disclose what was happening, getting her evaluated by specialists experienced in child abuse cases. I felt utterly defeated. Ricardo must have seen it on my face, because he leaned forward and said, but something doesn't add up in Robert's perfect plan. If he's trying to make you look unstable to gain custody, why is he doing things that so obviously terrify Kylie? An experienced manipulator would be more subtle. It's almost like he wants her to be afraid, but can't help himself from. Ricardo stopped mid-sentence, then asked me what Robert did for work before he was laid off. I told him accounting, at some firm. Ricardo inquired if Robert had ever been investigated at work, if he'd left under unusual circumstances. I didn't think so, but realized I only knew what Robert himself had told me. On my way back to Tiffany's, my supervisor called. Her tone was coldly professional, not at all like the woman who'd attended my baby shower 3 years ago. She stated she'd been trying to reach me and that we needed to discuss my employment status immediately. She informed me there had been multiple complaints about my conduct with patients, medication errors, and showing up to shifts impaired, all lies, completely fabricated. I tried to explain, but she cut me off, saying I was suspended pending investigation. She acknowledged their leniency due to my previous good record, but insisted the recent incidents were too serious to overlook, and told me to turn in my badge. I was still reeling from that call when I returned to Tiffany's apartment. I found her on the couch, looking utterly shell-shocked. Kylie was napping, finally sleeping after nearly 24 hours awake. Tiffany said something had happened while I was gone. She'd been trying to get Kylie to eat when Kylie suddenly asked if the princess game was real or pretend. Tiffany, unfamiliar with the term, admitted she didn't know about any princess game. Kylie stared at her for a long time, then whispered, if I tell about the tower and the dragon will burn everyone up. Daddy said so. Tiffany asked what happened in the tower. Kylie completely shut down, wouldn't speak again, just curled into a ball on the couch until she fell asleep from exhaustion. I immediately called Ricardo. He said this was a critical disclosure that needed to be documented, suggesting I take Kylie back to the children's hospital, asking for the same team if possible. He advised against prompting her or asking leading questions, emphasizing the need to create safe opportunities for her to speak. So, I took Kylie back to the hospital. Dr. Kelly was on shift and recognized us immediately. I explained what had transpired during the supervised visit and what Kylie had told Tiffany about the princess game. Dr. Kelly's expression grew serious. She made some calls, reassembling the previous team. They interviewed Kylie again, this time with a child psychologist specializing in trauma. Kylie still didn't speak much, but offered more whispers about the princess game, tower, and dragon. The psychologist asked if she could draw a picture of the princess game. Kylie initially refused, then suddenly agreed. What she drew made my heart seize, a stick figure girl in what appeared to be a closet or small space, a larger figure outside surrounded by angry red scribbles. She had pressed so hard with the red crayon it tore through the paper in places. The psychologist asked, who was in the picture? Kylie pointed to the small figure and said, princess. Then, pointing to the larger figure, she said, dragon, adding so quietly I almost missed it, but sometimes daddy is the dragon. They asked if she could elaborate on the game. Kylie shut down again, resuming that vacant stare. The psychologist signaled they should stop. As we were leaving the interview room, Kylie suddenly clutched her stomach and vomited. I initially thought it was just stress, but she continued to vomit incessantly. Her skin felt hot. Dr. Kelly checked her temperature, 103.4, far too high. They admitted her immediately, running tests. They found an infection they couldn't immediately identify and started her on 4 antibiotics. That's when Robert appeared. Somehow, he knew Kylie had been admitted. He stormed into the hospital room, demanding to know what was happening with his daughter. I lost control, screaming at him to leave. Security had to intervene, Donald was called. The entire situation spiraled. In the chaos, Kylie suffered a seizure from the high fever. Watching her tiny body convulse on the hospital bed, as medical staff rushed around her, is an image I will carry forever. They stabilized her but had to move her to intensive care. The doctors are perplexed by the infection, unable to pinpoint its origin or the reason for its severity. They're trying various antibiotics and running more tests. When she's awake, she keeps asking if the dragon is gone, if she's safe in the tower. Robert is permitted supervised visits, playing the role of the devastated father flawlessly. This morning, he cornered me in the hospital cafeteria, no one else around. His perfect, concerned father mask slipped for just a second. He leaned in close and whispered, "You should have stayed at work like you were supposed to. Some things you're not meant to see." Ricardo is attempting to secure an emergency court order to prevent Robert from having any contact with Kylie. He believes her disclosure about the princess game and the dragon, coupled with her reaction during the supervised visit, is sufficient to raise serious concerns. However, the legal system moves slowly, and Kylie needs immediate protection. The doctors just returned with more test results. The infection is worsening despite antibiotics. They're bringing in specialists, discussing possible causes, asking about any medications Kylie might have been given at home, any chemicals she might have been exposed to. I don't know what Robert did to our daughter. I don't know if this infection is related or simply tragic timing. I don't know if she'll. I can't even write it, can't even think it. Kylie's fever spiked again an hour ago. She was delirious, thrashing in the hospital bed, fighting against the nurses trying to help her, screaming about the dragon, about the burning, about how it hurts when Daddy makes her drink the special princess medicine. Special princess medicine. Those words sent a jolt of ice through my veins. I asked the doctors to test for poisoning. They seemed skeptical but agreed to run additional toxicology screens given the circumstances. Just received the preliminary results. They found traces of antifreeze in her system. Antifreeze. My 4-year-old daughter has ethylene glycol poisoning. The doctor said if we hadn't caught it when we did, if we'd waited even another day. Robert has vanished, leaving the hospital after his last visit, and no one can find him. The police are searching. Tiffany brought me clean clothes and stayed for hours, holding my hand. Ricardo is working on emergency protective orders. Donald seems stunned, repeatedly stating there were no indications of this level of abuse, as if that helps anything now. What kind of monster poisons his own child? What was he attempting to do? Kill her? Make her sick enough to be hospitalized? So he could play the role of the concerned father? Or was it just another perverse game? I cannot leave her side, not for a minute, not even to use the bathroom, without someone watching her. Terrified Robert will return to finish what he started. The police found something at our house, cleaning supplies in Kylie's princess cup, residue resembling antifreeze mixed with juice, hidden in the back of her closet where she wouldn't see it, but Robert could easily access it. They're testing it now. Ricardo says with this poisoning evidence, we'll get full protection for Kylie. He asserts no judge would allow Robert anywhere near her after this, and that, when she's well enough, we can go stay with my parents until the case is resolved. Edit, the police just called. They found Robert at a bus station, attempting to leave town. He's in custody now, being questioned about the poisoning, the files they found, and what exactly he's been doing to our daughter. Kylie is asleep again, peaceful for the first time in days. The antidote is working. Doctors are cautiously optimistic, saying children are resilient, capable of recovering from unimaginable trauma with the right support. I want to believe them, need to believe them, need to believe I haven't lost my daughter, even though I got her back. I need to believe we can rebuild some kind of life after this nightmare. If you're a parent reading this, please listen when your child tries to tell you something is wrong, even if they don't have the words, even if it seems impossible. Even if the person they're afraid of is someone you trust completely. Don't make my mistake. Don't let your child scream for you not to leave them and walk out the door anyway, because sometimes the monsters aren't under the bed or in the closet, sometimes they're right beside you, smiling while they plot to destroy everything you love. 3 weeks have passed since my last update. Kylie is out of the hospital, and we're staying at my parents' house, 3 states away. We have restraining orders against Robert, attempting to reconstruct some semblance of safety. Kylie's physical recovery has exceeded expectations, her kidneys are functioning almost normally. Doctors say children are physically resilient. I only wish their minds could heal as easily. She still wakes screaming, still checks every closet, under every bed, still whispers about the dragon and the tower. She refuses to be alone in any room, follows me to the bathroom, and watches the door while I shower. Her therapist explains. This hypervigilance is normal after trauma and could persist for months or even years. The truth about Robert's actions emerged in fragments, each more horrifying than the last. The princess game was merely the prelude. The tower was our hallway closet, where he would lock her when I was at work. The dragon was what he called himself when he was angry. The special princess medicine was the antifreeze mixed with juice. But that wasn't all. Police discovered dozens of videos on Robert's laptop, all recorded on nights I worked, all depicting Robert terrorizing our daughter in ways so depraved I vomited as they described them. Thankfully, he didn't sexually abuse her, but what he did was a unique form of torture, psychological torment designed to control her, frighten her, and make her sickeningly dependent on him. The videos showed Robert waking Kylie in the middle of the night, telling her monsters were coming, hiding in the closet and making scratching noises on walls, jumping out to scare her when she was almost asleep, forcing her to drink the special medicine, the antifreeze mixed with juice, and recording her cries of pain from the burning in her throat. Other videos showed him putting her in the closet, the tower, telling her to remain completely silent or the dragon would hear her and burn her. He'd leave her there for hours, sometimes all night, banging on the door randomly to make her jump, roaring outside to frighten her, opening the door just to ensure she was still frozen in terror. In some videos, he was gentle, comforting her after terrifying her, creating a cycle of fear and relief that trauma experts say forges powerful emotional bonds, positioning himself as both the source of terror and the sole source of safety. The most chilling videos showed him coaching her on what to tell me, making her practice saying she had nightmares, rehearsing how to beg me not to leave without revealing why, and punishing her when she slipped up. Ricardo says it's one of the most premeditated cases of child psychological abuse he's ever witnessed. The prosecutor is pursuing maximum charges: child abuse, attempted murder, torture. Robert is held without bail. They also uncovered other items: searches for poisoning symptoms, how to make someone appear mentally unstable, custody battles when a parent is deemed unfit, editing security footage, and remotely accessing phones to send messages. They found a document outlining his meticulous plan, steps to gradually portray me as unstable while making Kylie dependent on him through fear. The ultimate goal was full custody, removing me entirely. The document didn't explicitly state why, only referenced the project and maintaining optimal conditions. The hardest part was the bail hearing, listening to Robert's attorney argue he was a dedicated father who'd simply made unfortunate choices, watching Robert sit there, looking remorseful, the perfect image of a man deserving of mercy. The judge denied bail, deeming the evidence disturbing in the extreme, and ordered a complete psychological evaluation. The prosecutor believes Robert will plead insanity or diminished capacity. My supervisor apologized and offered my position back. I can't return yet, though. I can't leave Kylie with anyone. She panics if I'm out of sight. The most agonizing moments are when Kylie asks why Daddy did those things to her, what she did wrong to make him angry. Her therapist explains this self-blame is common in children. We tell her repeatedly it wasn't her fault, that Daddy was sick. In his mind, that some people hurt others because something is broken inside them. I don't think she fully believes us yet, doesn't grasp how someone who was supposed to love her could deliberately inflict such pain. Honestly, I don't understand it either. Kylie's night terrors are intensifying. Last night, she woke screaming that the dragon was in her room, going to make her drink the burning medicine again. It took an hour to assure her she was safe. Yesterday, I found her hiding in my parents' hall closet. My heart nearly stopped when I couldn't locate her. She was curled into a ball, eyes closed, perfectly still and silent. When I asked why she was hiding there, she said she was practicing being quiet for when the dragon came back. Last week, I received a letter from Robert, delivered through his lawyer, technically not violating the restraining order. Ricardo advised against reading it, but I couldn't resist. The letter was unsettling in its normalcy. He inquired about Kylie's health, expressed concern for her recovery, and stated he knew I was angry but hoped we could work things out. Not a single word about the abuse, the videos, the poisoning, as if it never happened. The prosecutor explained this compartmentalization is common in psychopaths, the ability to sever connections between different aspects of their behavior, to disconnect actions from consequences. Robert likely doesn't perceive himself as having done anything truly wrong. I constantly try to comprehend how I missed it. I lived with this man for years, had a child with him, yet never saw what he was capable of. My therapist says abusers like Robert are masters at concealing their true nature, suggesting he probably didn't even know what he would do until the opportunity presented itself. Ricardo called today. Robert accepted a plea deal. Multiple felony counts, a 20-year minimum before possibility of parole, no contact with Kylie or me ever again. This avoids a trial that would have forced Kylie to testify. I should feel relieved, but mostly I feel numb. 20 years isn't enough for what he did. Yesterday, Kylie played with another child for the first time since everything happened, my cousin's daughter, who's about the same age. They colored together, built a fort with blankets. She's also beginning to play again, to imagine again, to trust in small ways that the world can be safe, that closets are just closets, that medicine helps instead of hurts, that bedtime stories don't have to be about princesses trapped in towers. Last night before bed, Kylie asked if she could tell me a story instead of me reading to her. She said it was about a little girl and her mommy who escaped from a bad place and found a good place, that they had to be very brave but they did it together, and that the bad place was far away now and couldn't find them anymore. I listened, my heart in my throat, as my daughter created a narrative where she had agency, where we escaped together, where safety was possible." When she finished, she looked at me very seriously and asked, "That's us, right, Mommy? We got away from the bad place?" "Yes, baby," I told her, "we got away. We're safe now. The bad place can't find us anymore." She nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes, falling asleep holding my hand. She didn't wake screaming for the first time in months.